everybody, welcome back to Because Bikes. I am Chris Andresen, and I have a special guest here that drove in a snowstorm to sit with me in my garage, Todd Schumlick. Man, I appreciate you coming here.
Thanks.
Yeah. Todd and I have actually known each other for about 3 years. I reached out to him a couple years ago about actually his training that he does. And it's been great. It's been 3 years now. I'm way stronger and faster than I was and way more durable. So I wanted to say thanks for keeping this old guy together.
Amazing what 3 years of bicep curls will do for you.
Yeah, I look better at the beach too.
Yeah. In fact, you have bicep. I see you have dumbbells sitting on your dryer.
Yeah.
I assume you just do curls while you're also doing laundry?
In the shower, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
in the shower.
But Todd owns PerformX Training, and he's been doing it for over 30 years. And so I thought it'd be great to have him on the podcast, and he has so much information. I've learned so much from him that I just want to share that with you guys. And so Todd, I'd love to share with everybody kind of like, how did you get started into training? How did you get into this, getting these people to be badasses?
Well, it keeps going backwards. I keep thinking I know when it started, because I just grew up a BMX kid and a kind of skate kid. So it was like, not that time was it that, traditional to get into the gym or do fitness work. In fact, you were kind of anti that establishment. You had everybody, all the jocks, call it, all the stick and ball guys in school doing that stuff, going to the gym, lifting weights. And I was BMX racing, and my brother was, both my younger brother and I were racing. I was okay. I got up to race, expert, but he did a lot better, and he was racing Factory Kuahara in Canada. And so we start traveling, and you get out there, and you think you're pretty badass at home, and then you see some other guys, and they're like, whoa, like guys would start getting really incredible starts, and their starts were just incredible. And I was like, there's got to be something to that. And you'd see these guys, and I remember just seeing that and thinking, this guy looks strong, looks like kind of like a football player. And then I remember going back to the high school, and there was like, the local jock guy, he was like, did everything. He was a good skier, alpine skier. I'll never forget it. And I'm going to name drop him right now in case he ever is Jason Lucky. And that was my maybe unlucky day, because I went in there and he's like, you athlete? And I'm like, just told him what I did. I almost wanted to be this punk rock kid. And he's like, if you can't squat your body weight, I can remember it was 20 times or something. You ain't crap, man. Didn't use those words, and then I remember like, holy, I tried that, and he's like, yeah, you ain't crap. And I like walked out there kind of embarrassed and felt and I think maybe that kind of lit a fire. And then my dad was pretty active. I was like thinking about my dad, and my dad's out there cross country skiing, in Canada in winter. And he had weights, bought those Sears weights, those little plastic ones with the cement or whatever, it's sand inside them, whatever they were. And, and he was lifting weights downstairs, and he was cross country skiing and doing that stuff. And I think that pushed me a little bit further, even though I wasn't sold yet. And then all of a sudden, my first cousin we spent a lot of time with when I was young, made it to the NHL, made it all the way through the ranks and went up to the NHL. And then he'd come stay with us sometimes in the summers, and he was like, you got to work out, man. And he was about my age, and he started lifting weights and stuff. And then I think somewhere there, and then we just ended up in California on a trip road cycling. I thought it was almost like a joke, get some Lycra on and go for a road cycle. Never did that before, and somehow just started touring around Los Angeles, and ran into the right guy at the right time. Sort of was at a college, went through the UCLA campus, went to UCI, ended up at Santa Monica SMC college, and this guy was just like, hey, what are you into? And it was more like, it was pretty cool. He was kind of thinking like, what was my personality like? And he was a recruiter, Fred Lewis. And I'll never forget that guy either. And he was just like, hey, you should go check out our school. We got like this really crazy athletic academic thing. And he was like, I think we had this thing called kinesiology coming. And I think it just, all those things just kind of kept nudging me. And then next thing you know, I don't know, I'm in school and I'm learning kinesiology, human kinetics, exercise physiology, nutrition, some sports psychology.
So they started kind of there. When did you start PerformX?
Well, I left school and went back to worked around California for a while, made a little bit of money, got on some movie sets and some stuff, and just kind of put enough money together, got a little tired of LA Los Angeles after a few years, and then was like, the hockey player, the NHL player, my cousin, his parents opened up this kind of strip mall thing, this commercial development in Canmore, Alberta, which was just 3 years prior to that, had the Olympics in Calgary in 1988. And so they had the Olympics, and there was a lot of, like they said, a lot of residual athletes in the area. And they heard that I was kind of tired of being in Los Angeles and kind of working with, not the ideal crowd, not some athletes really focused. And I was like, I want to kind of do that. And they were like, I think this town is really, I heard you might want to open a training facility, kind of gym. So I went there, and I even called it Northern Athletic Club. And the idea is we were going north to this athletic club, not necessarily a gym. I don't think we ever called it a gym, just a fitness facility or whatever. And we opened that up, and we were in the area, and I was there, and I started going back to some of my old things I learned at school. I had this doctor, I had a professor in school that he kind of coined me at one time I think he kind of said I was Mr. PerformX. Oh. Because I used to say to people, like, people think the PerformX thing is like MX, like motocross or something, but it's not. I used to say to him, I would sit there and say, if you can perform X, what should you be able to perform Y? Like thinking of body and human kinetics. Like if you could push something, shouldn't you be able to pull something? Like, shouldn't be some sort of balance or something to your body? It was just a curiosity for me. If you could push with your legs, should you be able to pull? And so I'd always ask him these things, and he'd say, oh, Mr. PerformX. And so that kind of, but then it never really stuck. It was just something I remember in the back of my head. And then we had the Northern Athletic Club, and we actually put in 10 years in that location working with athletes, and then trickled in, like I was working with the NHL players. I had a group of hockey players I was working with, because natural, I got it back to Canada, and it's in the summers, all the NHL players are back home and we had two gyms. We had the one in Canmore, and we had a gym in North Battleford, Saskatchewan, which my dad ran, and it kept him healthy, as he said, and all the NHL players were in there. So we go back, and here's this like kinesiology guy, which at the time nobody knew really what that was. And so, guy understood kinetics and a bit of fitness and human physiology, etc. So, I would go back there and help these guys out. And doing that, all of a sudden, it wiggled me almost right out of the gym, where I was being, there was requests for me to get out and travel and work with athletes. And somebody once just said to me, hey, have you ever, I got a motorcycle. And that's where I always started. I got a motocross bike, and I was age 30. I bought myself a motocross bike. I hadn't been on two-wheelers for a while. I grew up BMXing, and I thought that looked like a rad progression to go from BMX to motocross. And I started going, and I went to a race, and I remember I just sucked, and I got really bad. I placed like dead last in the novice class at 30. And I met a bunch of guys at this race in Canada, and one of the guys was like, top guy, Jason Fournette. And I was like, hey, maybe you want to do some training? Like, it was really weird. We were at the motocross race, and there was a guy there, and his brother was actually referee in the NHL. So he was kind of these introductions. He met me one time at some banquet thing and something. And then, Jason, I remember that saying, I'm not the guy, man. I'm kind of tail end of my career. Not really that guy yet, but have you heard of this guy named Blair Morgan? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, he's like this up and coming, like amazing motocross and snowmobile champion, a snowmobile racing. And I was like, And he's like, can you get hooked up with him? And I kind of through some people I met him, and we got together at a race, and we chatted, and we hit it off. And then he just brought me on board in his program. In fact, I helped him for the first year, I think, for free, and was like, hey, let's see if this stuff works. I work with NHL players, but I'm not really a stick and ball guy. I've always been like BMX guy, skate guy, and I thought the action sports kind of needed support. And thinking about my brother and I racing, and he's like, let's give this a shot. So we started training, and next thing you know, I was kind of working for Skidoo, like the snowmobile brand, Bombardier. And they had me traveling with them and going to, their camps and doing their training. And then so, got back home, and eventually, it was funny, I had this, this guy that was kind of a real big inspiration to me, and he used to own an IndyCar racing team, a guy named Al Gustafson, who's unfortunately passed since, but he just one day walked in, and he's like, you need to rebrand yourself. And I was like, what's branding? You know, at the time. And he's like, Northern Athletic Club's your gym, but there's you, and it's something else. He's like, you got any flashy names? Something that can hook. And I was like, oh, whatever, coming up. And I was just like, PerformX. And he made me my logo that's almost survived till now. I mean, slight changes, but he was him. And next thing you know, we just, in Canmore, we started, I think as soon as I had Blair, I was pretty fortunate. He started within a year, start winning championships in snowcross, and then he would start doing really well and winning Canadian motocross championships. So, and he took me to X Games, and and you get introduced to that crowd. All of a sudden, you're rubbing shoulders and working with a guy that's up against Sean Palmer. Palmer was racing snowcross, and all of a sudden your guy's doing pretty good, and so but part of it is you got to like live up to it. Like I'm like, okay, you can have a good sales pitch for a couple of years, but eventually it's like if you're just full of BS, then people are going to recognize that because no one's getting fitter, getting better results or whatever. So he introduced me to the motocross scene, and then it just sort of kind of snowballed into more motocrossers, and eventually, if you're asking, it got to mountain bike.
Yeah. Yeah, and it kind of backstory on how I found you. I'd been working with some local trainers in the area, actually, and some really great ones. Some of them are known nationally and world-renowned health people, and they did a great job. But I was always wanting this person that really understood my sport. And these guys that understood health, they understood fitness, they understood that, but they didn't understand kind of what I was doing and the demands I was doing. And so one day I was like, Pink Bike came up, and it said PerformX and Richie Rue in the gym, like with and this is I think long before the Privateer series even kicked off, and it was in there Richie, and I think it was Mike trying to go up against Richie, and like right, and Richie just crushing him in there, and I was like, wow, this is what I'm looking like. This guy is working with some of the best riders in the world. I was like, I wonder if there's something out there. I wonder if you would work with a local guy like me, and that's when I sent the email out and we met. And so it was kind of the right place at the right time for me to run into it, and it was great. But I didn't know that backstory. That was pretty awesome there. So your professor kind of called you PerformX.
yeah, it's like it's kind of cool because it's like and it's paying whatever homage to these guys or whatever the word is, and it's like it's just there's so much nostalgia there that's kind of cool, and a lot of people think that it is the PerformX brand is just like, okay, it was an MX brand first. It was actually, it was hockey players, to be honest with you, almost the first place professionally that I was assisting people. But again, wasn't really playing a lot of hockey, so it made sense to me to stick my nose where I wanted to be. Like I wanted to be in these areas. Like I want to ride my mountain bike 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, and I'd ride my motocross bike, and I thought this will keep me, enthusiastic. And if I only got half a brain, I might as well at least be somewhere where I can put that time in, and it's not like work, and you know me well enough in the years, I can sit behind the computer or make phone calls, and because I love it. Like it's all in areas I really enjoy, and it feels like, wow, I can't believe we're coming up on our 30th anniversary for, I guess officially, it being what I do, being named or called PerformX.
Yeah, just getting to know you the past 3 years and just seeing the brand, I could see 30 years pretty easily because you're always doing something and reinventing it. Can you tell me kind of the first kind of mountain bike athletes you started working with, kind of the bigger ones?
Well, yeah, that's kind of like, it's cool because I was in this motocross world helping Canadian motocrossers because it was a good market for me. You kind of had to be at the events, and I had some pretty good opportunities there. Like Fox was asking me interviews with James Stewart, and there was like these Ricky Carmichael age, and I was fortunate I had guys like John Sebastian Walk, 5-time Canadian champ, and he was training with Ricky. He was going to his place, and Ricky knew it, pushed him. So it was kind of neat for me because I was working with a rider that would go to Ricky's place that would push Ricky. People knew that because Ricky was like the man on a bike. But John was fast too, Jean-Sébastien Roy, JSR as we called him. But he was just known to be so disciplined and work that extra bit. And I think Ricky wanted to be around that. So all of a sudden, anyways, you start making a name, and you get those crossover brands like Fox, the Troy Lees, and then Red Bull. I started working with some Red Bull athletes in moto, and we were doing well. Like we had a lot of, my guys were all the top 3 guys. Like we were on the podiums and I was training the guys. So like eventually, like Red Bull was just like, hey, one day it was like, hey, we got this guy. And he's not gelling really well with this other trainer that we put him together with. And he's a mountain bike guy. And his name is Stevie Smith. Mm-hmm. And we were just wondering if you'd be interested in meeting with him. And I was like, well, I'm in British Columbia. And I remember we went out for sushi, him and I, and we met, in Vancouver downtown. He was in to actually meet with Red Bull. He had just signed his Red Bull deal. And sure enough, we just signed it and they had us sit down together, and I just told him how I approached motocross, and it was a little different. I said that I was doing this, like, I knew I was going to start, I was riding mountain bikes, and I thought, I kind of like to try this mountain bike thing too. And I started kind of studying the physiology behind it, the kinesiology. And then I started looking at research. Was there any research done? There was some. And it was like, I feel like all these guys are just kind of going to spin class. And they're just bringing their respiratory and their cardiovascular fitness, even some leg fitness, up to a certain level. But I felt like I looked at the sport and I looked at how aggressive it was and how ambitious you had to be with your upper body ability too. And grip strength and lumbar, lower back, core, pelvis, and and then there was also the durability part. You had to be durable, because if you're going to take these risks, it's not just about how your on-bike fitness is. It's like, what do you believe you can handle? And I don't mean packing on muscle to have more armor, but I mean to tumble, to fall, to take the crashes, to get back up, also to recover. So all these things came into mind, and kind of approached Stevie with that approach. And I could see it was a spark. He was like, okay, this guy's talking a different language. And I think that, and then just, he had maybe somebody that was like, you can't do this, you can't do that. I was just like, what are we doing? Like, what how many beers? how much potato chips? Well, how about we just tweak that a little bit? And it was like step-by-step process. And as you know, the stories come out about him, and I'm not the most proudest, like, you can name drop all these guys, and it's like, oh yeah, and he ended up in the end, in my contract with him, my work with him, the champion of the World Cup. It does give you confidence. I'm not gonna lie that you're doing the right things. But I feel like it's an equal opportunity. Like, I was teaching him, but he was teaching me, like, equally. Wow. Like, I was watching him, and I'm like, like, is this working? And is this things we're doing, the things we're cutting off? And I'm thinking about the psychology, and all of a sudden, it's the story about him sitting in front, in my place eating pancakes, and you're making these incredibly, spelt pancakes, all the good fats and everything else, and you're saying it's a Sunday, and do you want to eat some butter and some maple syrup? And he looks you deadpan in the eyes, and he says, I'll only eat that if you can convince me, or he's like, I trust you, but if you can tell me that this is better for me, that this is going to make me faster. And I was like, it's not, it's just going to taste good on your pancakes. It's Sunday, we're going to go ride moto. He's like, then I don't need it. Yeah. That's where I could see where this guy in, year one was just like, oh really, I can't eat that? Yeah. And then you're nudging. Yeah. And I kind of tell the new athletes, I'm like, don't overwhelm yourself with this. Yeah. It's like, and that's kind of what I learned with Stevie. There's a perfect, like you had a guy with talent for sure, and it was going to help me. I mean, there's no denying it. I've had strong athletes, lots of Red Bull athletes, and you can sit and name drop all these guys, but you gotta prove your worth too. You can get away, especially when there was a bit of nervousness because, and it's okay because it gives you confidence, but they go away and they're supported by Red Bull, like Aaron Gwynn, yeah. Richie Rude, Marcelo Gutierrez, Finn Isles, the guys I've had along the way, Brooke McDonald. And then you do this work with them, and then they go to the Red Bull centers. And the Red Bull center says, what are you doing? And you're like, all right, they're going to tell you, well, what are you doing with that idiot for? This is the stuff you should be doing. And so that really, I was like, man, how do I stay ahead of that? Yeah. How do I compete with that? Because these guys got access to these facilities. And nothing against the Red Bull facilities are incredible. But it's so science. It looks so scientific, and it is. I'm all for science, but I find like what I do, and I know I have difficulty saying this sometimes, but it's more maybe organic. Yeah. You kind of spend time with that guy, and you kind of realize what buttons to push,
Yeah.
and which ones just to hold off a bit.
Yeah, one trick with one athlete may not work with another athlete, just be how they're wired, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So when you think of like, if you're kind of asking like how did the PerformX brand end up here, I think that you like, I guess you see some people out there and they kind of start from the bottom, you know, and they're working with people on the way up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'd learn a ton that way too. But I kind of got into it, I guess I think about it, somebody told me this recently, I kind of got in from the top.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the NHL, maybe the credibility was there because of my degree or whatever, but circumstances, you get there and then, but you jump in at the top and then you're like, wow, you better pull your weight. You better know something and be able to progress with these guys, and then you're held to it with testing at the Red Bull Center and you're like, holy man, these guys are being tested if anything's improving, and they're getting lactate tests and they're getting VO2 maxes, and I don't even do that stuff. And I'm like, okay, so we're going to find out if this is really working in there. And then the real world stuff. Are they racing stronger? Are they getting some results? And then you kind of get pushed into that. And then, you know, eventually the other part is I'm fortunate, I guess, because I always had the other job. You know, the World Cup team stuff, like running a motocross team prior to that, and then a mountain bike team. Well, that does something else. It gets you to the races. Mm. And it'd be hard for a lot of people just to be the trainer and have the budget there for themselves or for the riders to say support you through the whole series. Well, I was over there. Was it in the master plan? I don't think it was. It sort of just happened.
Yeah.
And here I am out there. So you're at the races and you're seeing the way stuff is working or not working. Oh, they're a bit tired. They're, you know, or like maybe worked too hard the week before. You could see it in them. Or getting feedback in the moment, like at a race. The results, what do we need to do? And this is coming on my 11th year, you know, touring the World Cup circuit in downhill mountain bike. But you're also there with the World Cup XC riders too, so there's a lot of feedback even in that world. So you get to see what the real endurance and respiratory cardio, like I'd ask questions all the time, hey, why do you do that? What's going on with that? And now even I've had really good access to the EWS for quite a few years with Richie, and I've got some new. I've got Kate Lawrence now on with, who's racing EWS and I think US national champ. So, you know, I don't know if that was the answer, but
yeah, no, that was great. And I'm glad you kind of led into some of the team management stuff that you've done, because you have such a big story with so many different things that I want to do another podcast specifically about that, because you have so many great stories and so much history of that. Right?
I'll get that IFR hat out. I get that intense factory racing, shirt on, and
we'll do an interview just on the podcast.
I'm a bigger pain in the ass in that role, I think.
But I do want to talk about. So when I started training with you your first year, you actually said, hey, Chris, I'm thinking about this thing. Why don't you come up to Squamish here? I got some of my good friends and peers. I want to sit down and run this idea by you. And at the time, I was like, wow, I was really flattered that I was kind of a new athlete of you. We talked about what I did for business and stuff. And we'd go up there and do some testing with me and stuff. So I came up there and we sat down and you talked about this idea of this online concept that you wanted to release. And literally, I think it was 3 years ago to today, or at least close to it, maybe 2.5, right?
Yep,
and
sounds about right.
You sat down and you told us what you were thinking and like all that, and like you didn't really know how it was gonna roll out or that, but you're like, I know I'm gonna need to do this, I know that, and like we talked about it, had a great meeting on it, and the cool thing is it rolled out this year, like the last couple months, the first online program. So I really want to talk about the online program with you, why you thought that was so important, and what's the big purpose of the online program. Like before, you were just training, maybe a maximum of 20 athletes. Like you'd have your elite guys, then you kind of have the level right below that, right?
I think first is just to get bloody rich.
Yeah.
Whoop! Inside voice.
This
Todd.
is the mountain bike world.
Yeah. Sorry, dirtbags. No, I'm a dirtbag, so I get it. No, I think the inspiration there was, I kind of thought about this and I thought, okay, if I'm pushing this elite training where I've got a limited number of people I can work with on elite level all year round.
Yeah.
And I've done sort of the elite level 1, elite level 2. You've done the level 1 with me, where you come in as like a pretty serious enthusiast part-time racer, and it's like, okay, that fits for those kind of guys. And then of course my elite level 2 has always been my, full-time professionals that do this for a living. And so I was always like, what's the next step? How do I get to more people? Well, that makes sense. Like, I can't be everywhere at all the time, and we're developing some people to work with us, including Addison, who's coming on board, and he's been great, bringing some new fresh energy and ideas. But as like, there's a lot more people that I think I can provide, 30 years of, like, even the mistakes I made, the things that I've learned, like, whether it's what equipment and how much of it and where. And I thought, I should be able to take that 30 years and sit in front of, my computer and, just have the discipline, which was probably what it took more than anything. I've never, ever, like, college never required that much time of me. Like getting through a degree, like I don't even know what the hours are anymore, but we sat there and, like, I get it what maybe programmers are up against, in the IT world, but I don't even know if I would have done this again if I would have known then what I know now. Yeah. It's like, it was a massive, massive endeavor, but I was able to, let's say, be the contractor there and really just not farm it out to all these people. I think that happens a lot of times because it's so overwhelming. I literally just sat down and went through everything, got in the studio, filmed, and I wanted to put all those exercises. And I'm just a bit nuts. Like, I think you'd call me out if I wasn't. Like, I can't do something in the middle. It's like, you don't do it or you do it. Yeah, yeah. And if I was going to do it, it was like I was going to get all the exercises, everything we knew online, and build these programs. And we were going through stuff this morning. Yeah. Like, hey, what do you think of this next generation? The new programs coming online in the next month. It's like, what can I do this to make this more user friendly? And it's kind of cool because I find, like, we've been online now for just over 3 months, and I just told you, like, 1 refund out of a few hundred people. Yeah. And feedback has been incredible, and I'm like, God, when's it gonna? I don't even knock on wood. I just feel like we've kind of checked some boxes, and that's why we've done a soft launch only, because I'm not totally happy with it yet. I want to see it a little bit better, a little more user friendly. And the other one, somebody just called me a few weeks ago and was like, you could charge more. And it's like, I don't, like, my elite stuff is a premium, right? $2,000 and $4,000, which is still not $60K plus at Eldon Baker's place.
That's a pretty good
but
deal.
I couldn't, for me personally, it's not everybody. I'm not a babysitter, and I'm not there to do that, live with people. I'm like, here's the recipe, you bake the cake. Yeah. I'll just give you the recipe if you're cool with that. I think that's part of the psychology. Yeah. So I wanted something on the other end that was really affordable. And if you're just like, somebody goes, I'm not sure about this thing. There's so many other good programs out there. My buddies at Fit for Racing and, enduro training with and so on and so on. There's great. And I've said to people, I say to them straight up, I'm like, you think of it as like a restaurant. You can't really say there's one best restaurant. You know what I mean? Like, there's a great steakhouse I know in Vancouver that's, like, supposed to be one of the best in the world. Well, it might be one of the best restaurants, not to my wife, she's a vegan. Yeah. So, and so I tell people with us too, it's like, I wanted almost a service where somebody could, I don't want to say dip their toe in the water, but they could try this out. Yeah. Like, we start at $99 for a 4-week program. It's like, okay, try this out for 4 weeks. Does this look like the kind of path of training that works for you? Is this the stuff that you enjoyed? Because at the end of the day, a lot of kind of various fitness would work. Go build some fences, do concrete work, roll around a wheelbarrow all day, and you're going to get a good lower back and grip strength. Yeah. But what can we do to do something that you can do in the minimal amount of time? Not that I'm not into there's a fast fix. Yeah. There is no quick fix. But I kind of looked at people's lifestyles, and I thought, most people I think can put in, 6 to 8 hours of training per week. So yeah, like, for us, it was, we could figure out how much time I thought was, manageable by people that, following this program, but still get some results that motivated them that they were doing the right things. And then like, man, how do you get all that detail? Well, we said, we're visual creatures. Let's get good videos. Let's shoot a different bunch of angles, get my voiceover. I seen a lot out there, and a lot of it was just kind of like music in the background, and people are just, not against these people, but it's just shirt off training, and people, I call it that, flexing, showing how good their bodies look and stuff and movements. And I'm like, that's not my company. It's not about getting your, what's the kids called? Swole?
Swole. Yeah, you get swole.
We're not crushing things, we're not smashing things, we're not beast mode or whatever these words are. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a little more, it's a very spiritual connection to this training.
Yeah.
I come from, when I was young, I had a really good martial arts instructor that taught me a lot about maybe some control of ego and, and speak what you know.
Yeah. Don't
talk about what you don't.
Yeah.
And I think for me that was really good, and I was respectful that way to that. So the training was like, okay, so let's go into this training and teach, more importantly, movements. Not necessarily, trying to build muscle or necessarily even trying to lift more weights. Like we were with an athlete last night, and I said, don't worry, you're not trying to win in the gym. We're trying to win on the bike.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to win in here.
Yeah.
You can have your butt handed to you every time. If it's difficult to move that way, that's a real good thing, because that means you're doing pretty good as a rider. And if you're not that good at this, wow, imagine when you get decent at this, your riding is going to go exponential. So it's like, this isn't CrossFit what we're doing. We're, again, nothing against CrossFit. And CrossFit's it revolutionized a lot of fitness, but it became a sport in itself. And you're trying to compete against yourself and in whatever a group, and it's competitive and it's awesome. But I wanted to use the gym more to supplement already all that riding you do. You do all that riding and you're building already from that riding a big amount of fitness, which is kind of why when I started with Stevie, I was like, well, why do people ride all summer and then go into the off season and start doing spin class? Not forget even it's downhill. I'm just thinking, why did you do all that? And then that's your first, isn't that just a duplicate of what you just pulled off for months?
Yeah.
So why not supplement the body? And as you know, my saying is, wellness is the base of fitness, not vice versa.
Yeah.
So if you can get the body well, and that's always been my goal. I mean, I'm like 53 and I still want to shred on a mountain bike, on a mountain bike and a motocross bike, and I've been through things like whether I've severed my tricep off and my shoulder's got no rotator cuff, and you hear me in videos talking about it, my tib and fib has been broke. And they're not badges of honor, but they're the reality that I like to take those risks, and I'm okay with that, and not hopefully out of like, hey, look at me, but more out of the challenges that you have from those risks. And I thought, then I'm going to use the gym and this exercise thing and nutrition and mental thing to manage those risks.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And develop those biomechanics and teach those movements, and maybe kind of do it in sort of hopefully a humble way.
Yeah. Going back to my first 2 years training with you, I came back and I said, Todd, it's been great. My results are better. I'm stronger. And I was like, can we do a small program for some of my buddies? Like, I got a bunch of buddies here in Spokane. And so Todd was super cool and built us a little program. And I had a group that would train in my garage, and it was great. But the problem was I couldn't tell everybody, like I couldn't offer it to everybody. We just couldn't do that. And so when you told me that the online stuff was coming and it was getting closer and it was released, anytime I have something that I find so much value to me as a rider, or even in my life in general, I'm the first, I just tell everybody, this is what I do. And so one of the reasons having you here today is I want people to know that there's this program, this online program that you've done that's not just for the elite mountain biker or the really good racer. I'm on week 10 of my 12-week program online that I got to do the first 10 weeks so far, and it's been great, and it's gonna be awesome. The first thing I thought was, I sell these high-end performance bikes to people all day long. We sell them at all the stores, and now we have someone here's a way to keep them riding them healthy and keep them going. And like, we have another thing to offer. It'd be like, go see Todd, go line up, and you're going to be able to ride this bike better and longer because of that. And like, I think there's so much of that I really appreciate that you took the time to build this online program for everybody to like, so it's not just for the elites, for anybody. The average mountain biker is going to benefit from it, you know? And back when you first started this, it was funny when you were talking about, I was like, I never went to the gym. Like, you know, I was the same kid. Like, you know, I didn't go to the gym till I was like, maybe in my 20s, I was like, maybe I need to figure this out. And like, what did I do? I went to spin classes all the time. So all the stuff you said, it was like, oh my God, I did all that. So super funny. Well, yeah, I mean, and the thing about the online training is right now there's a 4, an 8, and a 12-week program. There's mountain, there's moto. The other part that I loved about
and action sports.
Action sports,
which is like, I just was answering somebody when I was upstairs. It's our multi-sport. So
like
if you do a bit
skiing, or like you have skiers you work with,
pro skier Mark Abma.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I also like the fact that not everybody has a full setup, and especially with COVID now, a lot of the gyms got closed, so it's really hard for a lot of people to train.
Yeah.
But you offered each of the programs in like a full, have like everything you need in it, or just like a limited equipment. Yep. So even if you don't have access to the gym, you don't like going to the gym, you can do this stuff literally at your house. Like, you don't need a bunch of equipment to do it.
Yeah, and that was like where the program, the programmers, the IT people, nuts. Because they were like, okay, wait a second, I thought we were doing a 4, 8, and 12 week. We are, but we're doing this in moto and mountain bike, and they have to be all different. Yep, they have to all be different. Slightly, there's like parts of them that overlap that are like the framework of all the training. And then there's like, I told this guy, I do multi-sports. And I said, well, do the action sports, because it's 66%. 3/4 of it is the same, or 2/3 of it. And then you just got the slight variations. It will work good for all the sports you're doing. So they were like, okay, so you're going to do that. And then I was like, oh, and we have to do it for limited equipment and full equipment. And they're like, oh, so we're going to break this down to more. And like, yep, okay. Oh, wait a second. We need to do weight categories. It wasn't like a gender thing for me. It was weight categories. It was like, oh, okay. So if you're under this weight, you're in that lightweight class or whatever, sub 125. Then you have that middleweight class, and then you have the upper weight class. And then I was like, no, but you got to give people a range. Mr. PerformX stepped in. Like, if they're going to perform X, they got to perform Y. I didn't want people just lifting weights because then they're just going to go up, maybe get stronger in areas that are already like, I don't want to say overdeveloped, but they don't have any issues. And then maybe they're, instead of pushing, like you put me on the map, was like the privateer on Pink Bike, when like he could push with his quads, but he had no hamstring mobility and pull. What did that mean to somebody that don't know what that means? They're like, well, so what? Don't you push with your legs? Yeah, but your quad development is limited to what the opposing muscle can do as well. This is just science. It's not my opinion. It's there. And at the same time, eventually you're going to lead to knee problems, hip problems, lower back, if there aren't some balance there. So you start, so I was like, no, I cannot just throw this out easily and just say to everybody, oh, just pick your own weights, which I'm not, again, throwing under the bus, but I see some programs that are very random. And also their programs don't have they don't go through a structure. As we know, there's a structure. We're doing this stuff. We start with that stuff that's unilateral. So we do a wheel balance. I call it a wheel balance, like get things working straight, left and right side, push and pull, make sure everything's kind of as balanced as it can be in a short period, and keep them kind of short, the program, so they're enjoying. They're not too repetitive, and you're like, oh, bored, I need some more. Which is why CrossFit works great, because you're almost always entertained. It's new, it comes in different, and that's cool. I like that too. So I try to kind of think that, then balance, and then from the first program we move into more of the strength and power work, and that because then you're putting a bigger, I always say, you're putting a bigger motor in a car with a good wheel alignment. You don't want to stick a lot of horsepower into some chassis that's suspect. So we get that chassis right, put that big motor in, and then at that certain point where people, I think, make a little bit, maybe misunderstand, is that for most sports, what we're really looking for is power. Power. And it's not strength, and it's not endurance, it's a mix of both. And now our sport, power is the equation. And ping pong, swimmer, even marathon runner is looking for the proper equation. So there's a formula there. How many times can you repeat your force, your strength, over and over again? So if you're just pedaling away on the stationary bike, you're going to build your respiratory and your cardiovascular system up. But there's way more systems in play than just your respiratory that's running you up and down a mountain. There's your strength, there's your power, there's your grip, there's your lower, and it just keeps going. Your energy system, like your endocrine system, your Krebs cycle, if people remember in school. So the training is developing that. It's developing that system, so that system is more durable, more, so that we could,
the detail that it took to put that in, to separate the weight categories, to put in the recommended weights,
people hate me.
Oh my gosh.
The IT people.
Yeah, I bet the IT people do. I appreciate that because I'm doing the program. And if you don't have a lot of, I would say, experience in the gym or lifting weights, the great part is you don't need it because it really lays it out well for you. And I was able to figure out, okay, I'm doing this and these are the weight ranges I should try it in. And I did it. And you don't feel like you're going to get injured. Like it's a safe, right? Like that was probably the purpose of doing it.
Yeah, and just some things like somebody asked me today, we were saying like, should we do a fitness test and do our maximum lift? I'm like, well, that's just it's not that I don't really even, I mean, I didn't do that with Richie Rude or Aaron Gwynn until I think year number 3 or 4. And those guys were training with some really good people before me. So they learned some really good movements, because I'm not saying that's risky, but there's a lot of variables there. How deep is somebody going in their squat? How are they bench pressing? There's ways you can do a chin up, key up, and you can.
I think to me personally, I think it is dangerous, to do that. Like I've been injured previous to working with you in the gym, doing things that I wasn't ready to do, and the weights that I wasn't capable of. My ego got in the way, and I didn't have that instruction. So I do think there is some danger, if you don't have that.
Well, what you learn is with my elite athletes, I always tell them the fitness testing, a lot of it, their strength testing, is within their program. So in other words, when they're doing their programs and they're sending their sheets back to me, and I look at and I review their cycles of training, their weeks, when they are prescribed to send them to me, I can look at them and I can evaluate, because I can tell if somebody did, one-legged squat so many times, and I even ask them, send me a video of how you did it, and I can look at them, or if I'm, see them in person. And then I thought, well, how do I do that online? So I make sure those videos are really good. They're at different angles. You're really explaining to people. You give them a lot of detail. Give them a lot of places to not screw it up by giving them the instruction, do it, and then still tell people this isn't going to be perfect. I don't know if there's such a thing. There's going to be room. We're working on the new programs now, the accessory programs, which are going to be programs that you can do following your 4, 8, and 12-week programs. And they're going to be a variety, so people know what to do next. And then I've got the kettlebell sessions 1 and 2. We've got the dynamic strength and conditioning. We've got the body weight, non-gym sort of workout. So yeah, now we wanted to add also these vet or master's programs, because I'm seeing a lot more of these, plus 30s, plus 40s, plus 50s that are asking me and the world's changing. I just got back, I told you, from Hawaii, and you see people, on the North Shore, guys are inspired me, man. I was like, holy, look at all these fit dudes, just strong in the surf, strong on the paddles. And I was like, you know what? This is the world we're entering. It's don't train just for this season. I kind of always tell that people, we're not training right now, the younger athletes, for, this season. We're training for the following seasons and for the rest of your life. And you and I get that. We're investing now, because, we do know now what we're going to say to ourselves, we wish we'd known that. Well, we do. And so we're doing that work. So these vet programs, I looked at this, and I've been fortunate enough. I've got a great, one of my athletes, Don Hatton, he races rally, Dakar Rally, top guy in the motorcycle class. And just how much I've learned even through a guy in his 60s, and just, okay, what's too much? You can see how strong they can be, but it's the recovery is a little. So I kind of built these programs, and I realized, mobility is a bigger, and just you think about their lower backs starting to become more issues, and we can deal with that. We can work with that. So those vet programs and master's programs are there to really kind of hone in on those, I think, those parts. And again, that's coming in about a month. So I'm really excited about it, because I think that's, of course, at 53, and for me, as you might know, had a heart attack just over 2.5 years ago, and there was some Mark Weir, and Darcy Wittenberg from Anthill, and it's like all of us sat down, like I think we're pretty fit guys, and it's like gets you inspired. Like mine was a blood clot issue, you know, and some genetic stuff, a hole in my heart, so it's not your health and wellness, it's just you know, some other things, and we've got it kind of sorted. But that time when it happened, it made me really rethink about, you know, the quality. And I think a lot of people have gone through it with the pandemic too, right? I've read this, like we said, really good podcast about how people are changing the way that their lifestyle matters a lot to them. So that's a ton of inspiration on that side for me.
Well, Todd, thank you so much. I'm so excited to see kind of the direction, the future of what PerformX is going is with the online stuff. We got some great adventures ahead for us, which I'm really excited about. And I really thank you for making the journey over to Spokane and sitting in my garage and being behind the camera as much as I've made you be these last 2 days. I'm going to owe you some beers and some dinner for sure. So.
Let's let's follow up with the beers and dinner here soon. That'll be awesome. This is no problem. Thanks for having me out, and like always our goal, and I will say it, like you just along this journey, life, and it might be, but you meet people, and you meet people that like, it's not like you never ever got a hold of me and said like, let's figure out a way to make some money. Like this is a good money making adventure. I run from that kind of shit so fastly. I trust me, it worked. Again, my half a brain, I realized that when you search for it, it's when you fall short of it. It's like follow what you love and you really believe in. That you believe that stuff you're saying, that's not just crap. And you were like never like it's a way to sell more bikes. You were like, I feel responsible towards people, and you know, I feel responsible towards my buyers, and I want to do this to inspire them to take care of, well round their programs out. And I thought that was like, I was like, dude, this is the kind of stuff that it's going to be an equal opportunity again. It's not going to be just me benefiting. I'm like, I'm going to learn something from these people, and they're going to make me better at what I do too. So,
thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. That was a long one because there's a lot of good information. So I appreciate you guys waiting and checking out. But check out PerformXTraining.com. You're going to sign up, but do the 4-week, do the 8-week, just give it a shot. You'll be really impressed with it. You'll love it. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.
And go to PerformX Training, PerformX_training on Instagram. And the reason is that it's not always just promotional, like go sign up. No, I try and show you insight into what we're doing with our training. So if you check it out and it looks like your kind of thing, then you know. Yeah,
the PerformX Instagram is awesome. There's always tips on there. There's always, you got a lot of your big athletes on there doing that stuff, which is always fun to see. So yeah, check the Instagram out, and we'll talk to you guys soon.